السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، وتحية طيبة لأصحاب المعالي والسعادة والسيدات والسادة. حضورنا الكريم، موعدنا الآن مع جلسة النقاشية تحت عنوان الاستدامة في مشاريع التنقل. يسعدنا فيها أن نعلن عن المشاركين وأن ندعوهم في الوقت ذاته، ابتداء بالمدير العام ورئيس مجلس المديرين بهيئة الطرق والمواصلات في دبي معالي مطر الطاير، أيضا وزيرة النقل الفرنسية سابقا معالي آن ماري دراك، أيضا أستاذ جامعة هارفارد ومؤلف أيضا الدكتور مارك إسبوزيتو. كما تدير هذه الجلسة مقدمة برامج متخصصة في إجراء مقابلات مع المشاهير والشخصيات العامة البارزة السيدة شيرين متولي. هلا رحبنا بهم جميعا.
السلام عليكم، أهلا مرحبا بكم. Take your seats, تفضلوا. Shireen Mitwalli, I'm absolutely honored to be moderating this particular session on sustainability and mobility projects and really dive into a topic that affects each and every one of us on very much a micro level. Now, among the years, technology has always been the driving force for advancing mobility systems and the main enabler for cities towards achieving a sustainable future. However, embracing disruptive mobility modes as part of an existing ecosystem has never been an easy journey. Today, we'll address some of the challenges in deploying future mobility across cities and the key lessons learned to overcome these challenges. We'll be discussing new trends of mobility, not just here in the region, but worldwide. Success stories from around the globe, sustainable mobility and key challenges, and lessons learned and the way forward for adopting future mobility. It is an absolute privilege that we have an excellent panel with us today, such high caliber, and let me introduce them to you. First and foremost, we have His Excellency Mattar Al Tayer, Director General, Chairman of the Board of Executive Directors for the Road and Transport Authority, as we know, RTA, and Commissioner General for Infrastructure, Urban Planning and Wellbeing Pillar. Under his personal leadership since 2005, RTA has made remarkable achievements in a variety of fields, including radical developments of the mass transit system through mega projects like Dubai Metro and Dubai Water Canal. His Excellency has overseen projects worth more than 140 billion dirhams undertaken by the RTA. Such achievements and projects have ranked RTA amongst the leading and reputed global entities in the mobility industry from around the world. As Commissioner General for Infrastructure, Urban Planning and Wellbeing Pillar, His Excellency oversees 3 government departments in addition to RTA. He has led the project for establishing Dubai's urban planning for 2040 and aims to make Dubai the best city for living in the world. Please give him a big warm welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Her Excellency Anne-Marie Idak, former French Minister. She comes with 50 years of experience across environment, housing, urban planning and transportation. Her Excellency has notably served as Executive Director of Land Transport in France, before being appointed as State Secretary of Transport and moving into a Member of Parliament and State Secretary for Foreign Trade. In 2007, Her Excellency was named one of Europe's 25 top businesswomen in the Financial Times annual ranking whilst being chairperson and CEO of French Railways. She's currently appointed as a Director of Total Energies, Air France KLM, Saint-Gobain, Senef and the Senior Advisor to Sire Partners. And in addition to providing strategy for autonomous vehicles to the French government. Thank you and welcome, Your Excellency. Next, we have Dr. Mark Esposito, professor, best-selling author, and pioneer of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Mark is a professor of economics at Holt International Business School, Harvard University, and Arizona State University. He's been working with the UAE Prime Minister's Office as an advisor since 2019. In 2016, he was listed as one of the 30 prominent business thinkers by Thinkers 50 and featured by MIT Tech as one of the 100 top tech influencers in the world. Can I get a big round of applause, please, for all three of our panelists? As you all agree, we have certainly a wealth of knowledge on our panel this morning to really tackle this important topic. Now, my first question, of course, is to His Excellency. The city of Dubai, as everybody would agree, is evolving rapidly. A fundamental goal for the successful deployment of advanced and futuristic mobility solutions. Tell us, what are the iconic contributions of RTA to achieve this strategic goal?
First of all, thank you very much. I would like to start, before answering these questions, we must know that the change which is happening in technology, politics, economy, and happening maybe on a yearly or weekly basis, change and affect any plan, whatever plan you do. In RTA, our government recently launched the Dubai Urban Plan 2040 with a vision to be the best city for living in the world. And this plan actually is people-centric. It's actually focused on sustainability of urban plan development goals. We also, our government in the budget, all people in Dubai will notice that in 2022 budget, Dubai government has allocated almost 40% of the budget for the infrastructure and economic projects. In addition, RTA as a government department vision is the world leader in seamless and sustainable mobility. As all the people, all the inhabitants in Dubai noticed that during the even pandemic year, the RTA have actually delivered many mega projects in a record time. We did not compromise on safety and quality. And just I will give a few examples for the last few years. I mean, Dubai Metro actually launched in 2009, and we delivered the project in 4 years. And normally, rail work take number of years, let's say 5 to 10 years, any mega project you will do in rail work. We delivered 74 kilometers of driveless railway line with 47 stations in 4 years. In addition, today, actually, we extended the network to 101 kilometers and 64 stations. Another project maybe I must mention is Dubai Canal. Dubai Canal also we finished in remarkable period, in 3 years. This project actually, it provides 6 kilometers of waterfront, boosting the economy and tourism at the same time. The project actually is in the heart of Dubai. We had to work and go through 3 main arterial roads. And we have done this project without interruption to the traffic, actually. Again, I mean, where everybody, the world stood still, we continue doing the project. For 2.5 years, we actually finished the project worth $5.5 billion. And the three projects are the extension of the metro line to Expo site, the Dubai Intelligent Traffic Management Center, in addition, the Infinity Bridge, which recently we finished, and others. But if you ask me about the future, we signed with the American company and to actually deliver 4,000 robo-taxi. And when we agreed with Jim Cruz, we agreed with them that Dubai will be the first city outside the United States to have those robo-taxi. And we will have that in all, maybe in 4 years' time or 5 years' time. This also part of our 2030 target. We are targeting to achieve 25% of the transport trips to be autonomous by that year. And this is, of course, it's a project, a future project. It's an example only, and there are others. I don't have the time maybe to mention all of them, but this is one of the most important projects because it will touch the life of people here, and it will change the style of life for everybody, for the drivers, for the residents. It will affect everything, actually. And we have also to, at the same time, we have to do some legislation change.
Perfect. I was actually registering my car just yesterday, and it was one of the most efficient systems, especially because I'm used to coming from abroad. So congratulations for doing that for us. And congratulations, I guess, for the future, 4,000 robo-taxis. We're going to be looking forward over the next 4 years that's going to be implemented. So certainly very exciting times to come. Now, my next question is for Her Excellency Anne-Marie. Now, can you tell us and touch on what are the strategic directions when it comes to mobility from around the world? And in your opinion, who is paving and leading the way in this area? And if you can give us maybe why are they leading the way? Give us some examples.
Well, thank you very much for your invitation. I'm very happy and honored to be there and to meet again His Excellency, who we have a long time professional relations. I will begin by a sort of science fiction question. Will mobility continue to be the driver of economy, of society, business, trade, tourism, and so on? And I give you an example about this a little bizarre question. What about e-commerce? E-commerce is developing. It is a very, very strong trend, increased, of course, by the pandemic situation. What will it do in terms of number of shoppers versus number of delivery people? Less shopping, more deliveries. It is one example. And in many countries, especially in Europe, I must say, there are questions, a sort of fundamental questions about what will be mobility versus protectionism, versus all sorts of environment concern, versus remote work and so on. I haven't the answers. I think only that the answers are maybe a little more subtle and difficult than they were just a few years ago. Then the main trends in the world, to come more precisely to your questions, undoubtedly are sustainability, which means greening of all transportation. For example, electrification of cars, which needs very strong and very well organized network for charging. Then you have another type of greening, which is used more and more important as His Excellency clearly explained, of public transportation, trams, metro, buses, and of car sharing, which is another way to have a better use of each vehicle. So greening and connecting. Connecting is very connected, if we can say so, to such innovation as car sharing, as car or bicycle highway in free flow, as of course the security system, then the control command of all metros, and His Excellency knows very well the European and French expertise in this field. It's also very important to connect, one again, information and real life services. So there is really a sort of a need of integration between all sorts of services in real life, because in very many countries there is a separation between cars, authorities or actors, and public authorities for planning, urban planning, and for public services. So it's very important to integrate all these services in real life, and then to integrate them in a connected life, and especially in apps for the final client. The good countries,
Yes.
as His Excellency says, everything is changing very, very, very quickly. But let's say that this year, Finland, and especially the city of Helsinki, is a very good position for the two aspects I say: integration of all types of services on the real life and in the connected life. And they also begin to use robot taxi of the French technology Navia. Then I think really that France is in good position because we have important actors. I mean, on the public sector, as you said, I was the CEO of the French Railways and also of the Paris network, public transport network. We have 2 or 3 global leaders in terms of services. I'm talking about Keolis, you know well, Transdev, and also RATP. We have good technologies. From Alstom, I said Navia, and also EasyMile for what we call shuttles, robot shuttles. And also because we have possibility to integrate, as I said, all aspects of policy. And of course, and it's not only because I'm here, I want to say that at the global level, Dubai, thanks to RTA and thanks to His Excellency, has been and has been for many years and even decades, because all this is long term, as you said, is really on the forefront. Because you have the organization able to integrate, you have the technology mood, very important for IA, for data, and all this type of thing, and very open-minded. And I'm very happy, for example, that RTA has a special department for urbanism. Why? Because in another science fiction question, as last words, maybe it will, I'm sure that it will be more and more important to integrate also urbanism in our approaches of mobility. With 2 examples. How to reduce the travel distances. Maybe to have, zones where people can find on a daily basis at least work, housing, and shopping. If they don't e-commerce. And another big question, and I know that RTA is quite in advance thinking about it, is the place of road. And in fact, the place of cars in the city. Because in many European and developed country cities as yours, we go on building and building and building roads. And at the end of the day, it doesn't seem to be a total sustainable solution. That's why it is so important to include urbanism in our vision of the future, and that's one other reason why RTA is really in advance in the world.
Brilliant. Thank you, Your Excellency, for providing those examples. Now, my next is for Dr. Esposito. Now, I would love for you to touch on what are the largest innovations in regards to sustainable mobility. What does the future look like when it comes to maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Give us a glimpse into the future.
Great, sure. Thank you very much, and appreciate it. What we have learned so far from our esteemed guest. I think the future will definitely see an integration of the premise of the fourth industrial revolution into more actionable everyday's life. The fourth industrial revolution is an aspirational movement that looks at the convergence of technologies into everyday's life. The purpose is to make our life better
Easier.
and to build human-centric systems. Mobility, like infrastructure, they are perfectly designed for this. So clearly in the next few years, we can see a number of different evolution that likely will occur. The first 5 years ahead of us, we'll see an incremental approach about technology. Technology requires significant amount of time before it becomes visible to everyone's. Number of reasons. The adoption of technology depends greatly on the capitals around the technology. We'll see some of this technology most likely driven in the next 5 years within the whole carbon economy, which is becoming a big conversation around the world. When we're talking about carbon economy, we're shifting the conversation from the paradigm of climate change, which has been with us for quite some times now, to what we're calling today climate adaptation. There's almost like a need of understanding that the climate does not reverse back easily. It's more how we're adapting the infrastructure, the mobility, to adapt to a transformation that is underway. So the entire carbon sequestration will be a critical part. We start noticing already in our logistics when we're looking at fast consumers goods that we start having company moving into carbon neutrality. We can imagine mobility going into the same direction as well. When we're looking at carbon neutrality, we will build natural sinks. There will be a project in which we'll try to capture, going back in the conversation on carbon sequestration, how do we capture the carbon in natural forms? And I guess the net zero movement, Shireen, will probably really take momentum to the next level. And I think it's likely and plausible for us to imagine this in an incremental form. That's because even if technologies are available today, political capital is required for those technologies to be deployed. Financial capital are required, and consumers' behavior. Eventually, we'll need to have consumers on board with the story. When this happens, and let's now go into the next 10 years, some degree of maturity of the technology spectrum will be found. We'll start noticing some mainstream adoption. We start looking at some of the ecosystem that will start carbon neutral. We'll start noticing startup integrated at mass faster pace in the context. If we're looking at, for example, the UAE is pushing a lot the transformation of skills and workforce towards more of a technology savvy. That will require, of course, more people that will integrate with real estate, finance, and of course, mobility. So I see this effort that are starting now will likely become very visible in the next 10 years. Again, same story, transforming a country, a region, from what was his historical legacy to the future requires enormous amount of transformation that requires equally a vision. We do have it in the region. When we're looking about this elsewhere, we don't have that as easily. We do have some time fluctuation of that. So I'm quite optimistic that mainstream adoption of sustainable technology applied to mobility and infrastructure, moving infrastructure into some degree of hybrid in which the physical asset will be integrated through digital technology will actually happen. That it also means that our effort in repurposing real estate, which is kind of a supporting factor in mobility, will also see what will work look like when now commercial properties will not mean the same as they used to mean a few years back. And where do I see us in 15 years? So I think the fundamental changes will transform industries. I also have to say, geopolitically, the vision of China's Belt Road Initiative will become visible much more. No country is undertaking the same amount of infrastructural effort as China's been doing. There are definitely interests in the country doing that, but who can stop the, to some extent, largest experiment in modern history in terms of the amount of resources that China is trying to put into mobility and trade. Trade will become fundamentally digital trade, because this is a new form for us to think about redistribution. Supply chains will be strongly re-influenced by the role of China, the infrastructure. And I really think that energy will fundamentally start becoming much more of a portfolio rather than dependency on gas and petrochemicals, because we all seeing that energy companies are pushed to transform. We see that governments are pushing agenda to transform. In this same country, we are clear that we will not continue to trade oil and gas after 2050. So we clearly have a push to transform our energy. So I do see with a lot of optimism the future ahead of us, even if it will not be a linear distribution, because as we know, the future is not evenly distributed.
Some great points shared, Doctor. Thank you again. Now, Your Excellency, you mentioned earlier RTA has built mega mobility infrastructure. How did you personally meet the city's rapid growth while maintaining sustainable objectives?
Yeah. Before I start answering these questions, this remind me when Sheikh Mohammed, the Deputy President, Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai, has issued a decree and established the RTA in 2005. I remember the first 2 months he came to the RTA and he asked about the plan and the budget, and I remember at that time when in the discussion, during the discussion, that he asked the question when we can solve this congestion, traffic congestion, and how much it will cost. And I said at that time it will cost, we should start with $25 billion. And when I told him the budget, and he said this is a budget of a government almost, this is too much. And there was a technical discussion between us and with some advisors. And I told him, if we don't spend, you know, you already established the authority. You will lose this money in 10, 15 years. So it's better to invest now. And he gave me the decision in the same meeting. So now in the last 15 years, we have a transport, because you know, if you don't have a proper infrastructure, you will have no economy, no tourism, and no quality of life.
It's a backbone.
Yeah. So in the last 15 years, we have built transportation and road strategic projects at a value of $40 billion. At the same time, I mean, we became more sustainable, and the public transport share jumped from 6% over 18%. In addition, we increased the trip share of public transportation, mobility and walking from 30% in 2020 to over 43% in 2030.
Wow.
So also the 2040 urban plan also support this. 80% of the people will be within 20 minutes by walking and cycling. And this is what has been already approved by the government. In addition, just to give a small case study, for the metro, for example, from 2009 to 2020, we removed around 1 billion car trips from the road network. We reduced the CO2 emission by around 2.6 million tons. We achieved a total benefits of $31 billion. In addition, we are introducing all the different type mode of transport within our network. But of course, we have to deal with the legislation and the infrastructure and others. We are introducing the e-hailing, bike sharing, car sharing, bus on demand, and all this will be within our plan for the coming years. Yeah. We also increased the number of bridges for pedestrian 5 times from 2006 to 2020. And finally, also, as when I start talking about transportation, we talk about technology. Also, we have the NOL card system. Now, our NOL card system, in addition of it used as a paying mode, it's also you can use it in 12,000 retail outlets, public parks, and museums. In conclusion, you know, the different mode of transportation and the quick change in technology and the additional modes which is coming into for the different mode of transportation, it needs a lot of changes, either in the infrastructure or also in legislations. And this, of course, needs budget and needs, if you want also to improve quality of life, you have to think of also to link it with the first mile, last mile, integration. All these elements is important in planning, and if you don't have these integrations, you will not have a successful plan, even as an infrastructure or as a city. As a city, if you wanted for commercial or for tourism, you have to have the basic. And for me, transportation and infrastructure and roads are the basic and backbone for any economical business.
Absolutely, 100%. Some important points raised. Now, Dr. Esposito, I've got one for you. On the same topic of balancing mobility and sustainability, how can excellent management practices provide a balance, you know, between mobility and environmental sustainability?
So we could take this question under so many different angles. The one that I would like to share with you is the one that I mentioned briefly before about energy. One of the things that caught my attention recently is who is currently in the world buying green energy, and the answer is the top 3 buyers are Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft. Now, the first energy company that is on the list is Total, which happens to be number 4. But after that, we will see McDonald's, we'll see Verizon, Walmart. So there's a clear change of the idea of green energy and who is currently investing into that. At the moment, this company are buying green energy for self-directed needs to become more energy sufficient. It won't take long before they realize that if they do that, they could become a platform, they could become a grid, they could become energy as a service. And if that happens, the economics will change. For most of our modern history, we tend to collect energy from the producer countries and we distribute energy around the world. The process is very simple. No matter whether we're looking at the extraction or at the country level, we centralize and then we distribute. Models like the one we see now, pioneered by technology companies, will likely looking at the concept of decentralized energy. Now, it seems a bit stretch as an idea, but when I talk about what, for example, in the DAFC here in Dubai, the Dubai Financial Center, we started to notice is that more startups have been working in blockchain and some form of distributed ledger. They led to the creation of something called decentralized finance. We call it these days as DeFi. We're not far from thinking about decentralized energy. It's the same process that is happening more and more. When that happens, the idea of mobility with decentralized energy will change, of course, the sustainability conversation. So I see this, again, like in the previous conversation, very positive. I do worry about the concentration of energy power in the hands of a different set of players. So this is why the governance of technology becomes a critical conversation to engage and work with them.
Some really good points raised. Now, Your Excellency Anne-Marie, now we're talking a lot of positives here, but I want to start touching on some challenges. What are the leadership challenges of mobility as a service, and how can project management overcome those challenges?
What is especially interesting in this conversation is that we all use words such as convergence, such as integration. We could say also transversality, and all these type of things which open the landscape and the thought about mobility. We could think mobility was a matter of vehicles and good technology for vehicles, including up to autonomous or automated driven vehicles. But it's not enough. It's also about huge amount of investment, as His Excellency said. But these huge amounts are also in relation with political or institutional organization and power to find the money and to be able to implement the infrastructure plans. It has to go, of course, with the consumer behaviors. So it is a very large, and with energy. Yeah. At the end of the day, maybe the most important challenges now are about energy, on a multi-energy vision. Of course, more and more electricity, but where will come this electricity? And also human energy, who is bicycling and walking. The main is about energy, multi-energy, and about human behaviors, helped by good regulations and good impulse from the authorities, such as RTA, which is very powerful. And sometimes you can have some apps or systems called mobility as a service, but it's difficult, and here are the challenges. First, to have an integration of this type of apps, you know, which give you the schedules for the trains, or the availability of parkings, or the tariff for next trip, taxi trip. So it is difficult to have a good integration of all of these informations with real services. And it is difficult to have a good governance for this type of integrated services. And one good example is about pricing. For example, in the city of Helsinki, or in the French city in Mulhouse, by the way, we have around between 20 or 30 French cities implied in mobility as a service, MaaS, and at various levels. And the one who succeeds at the best level, such as Helsinki, as I said, is the one who succeeds in integration of all aspects. Integration of micro aspects, you can say at the basic level, let's say that Uber is the first step for mobility as a service, or a car sharing app. But if you want to have really the good system, you have to have a sufficient weight of public transportation, because mobility as a service between cars is not so interesting. So you have to have a sufficiently diversified system, and to have a good organization at the political or administrative level. That's why I'm so optimistic for Dubai future, as I am about the Dubai achievements because you have this capacity to have science, energy, society, culture, all the ingredients necessary for a positive vision.
And the vision, yeah, absolutely. Now, Your Excellency, what do you think are the main success factors to adopting, like many things that Her Excellency mentioned, adopting the future of mobility should be?
Personally, I think the success factors, maybe I can summarize I would insist on starting with technology, adoption of technology, and then I will give an example, the joint venture which we had with Karim, and we established this Hala company. It developed the service of taxi and improved the service by far. The second point is regarding legislation. Again, this is very important, and we have to have the flexibility in legislations, because every 2 months, every 3 months, we are getting a new mode of transportation, and this legislations, because most of them work within the road corridor. So you have to have the flexible legislations in order to accommodate all different mode of transport. Also foreseeing and shaping the future, in 2016, Dubai announced the self-driving transportation strategy. Also, you have to be agile, in adopting new modes and business models, because each transport mode needs a special business model to be able to operate it within the road corridor. Finally, is the taking a calculated risk. You must take the risk. And for example, in 2017, we demonstrated the aerial taxi concept, and we tried in the desert for some months, and with the Chinese company, with other companies, we succeeded with some, and we actually failed with others. So you have to have the courage to do this risk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some great points. Now, my finale question before we run out of time, to yourself, Your Excellency, Anne-Marie, what advice would you give to city leaders, not just, of course, here in this region, but around the world, who are willing to adopt mobility as a service?
I think that the aspect of legislation, which was underlined by His Excellency just a few seconds ago, is very important. It is important as a vision, because of course legislation is always the result and the reflect of a vision. What is your vision? What type of city will you offer? It is the case, for example, also in Singapore. Singapore is a very special case because it is high level of density, but it is very, very interesting because they have a vision, political vision, with the city of 20 minutes and the same type of approach you have, as you say, Your Excellency, a vision and then legislation. This is the political aspect in order to move everybody, all economic actors and also citizens, in the same direction. And legislation are also very useful to cope with certain difficulties. For example, I am in charge for the French government of the autonomous vehicles strategy. And we passed several legislation about data. Because it is necessary to have a sort of architecture designed at the adequate level to say which data should and can be shared by who, to whom, and which type of economic model for the data. It's one example of the legislation you need. So at the end of the day, when you are talking of energy, dollars, and behaviors, you are talking of leadership.
Yeah.
So I think that it is very interesting in the future of mobility is that you have to work on the very practical day-to-day behaviors of so many actors, individuals, car drivers, builders, of all sorts, and also with a very long term on the basis of a vision and of lots of dollars to be implemented to serve this vision. And you have all of that.
Some
in
great
Dubai.
advice. Dr. Esposito, what do you think? What's your advice?
So I will break my advice into two, and I'll make it as some bites. The first one is really the promise on the circular economy at the level of the assets. We see this pioneer a lot in Europe, how circular economy is moving the rethinking of ownership across the value chain. And I think a combination between smart city and circular cities, I think is really the future. And I know that this is already happening, but it has to happen more. The second advice is when a city is investing in technologies like artificial intelligence in which data is collective, we can learn from, through predictive modeling, what's the behavior as we constantly change, and design policy options that will help us understand better mobility as we experience it. I think these are the two advice that I would give, which are also happening. It just we need to take it to the next level of evolution.
Thank you. Thank you for those notes. And Your Excellency, what would be your advice for maybe other city leaders?
Personally, I think there are 4 advices. The first advice, which is I think is very important and must, engaging the customer to capture their requirements and their expectations, because all the service which you are offering is for customers.
It's for them.
And yeah, this is basic. And the second thing is benchmarking. We have to do the benchmarking with the best cities. So the city leaders must do benchmarking. They must exchange experience. They must also not just by email. They must go and see their experience and evaluate. So benchmarking is very important because every city, every country, they have their own budget. They have their different people. Like Dubai, we have 200 nationality. We have to consider also a city like Singapore, Hong Kong, when we do benchmarking. The third one, select the right business model for the city. Maybe a model which maybe will be suitable for Dubai, maybe will not be suitable for another country or another city. Fourth, adopt agile policies and legislations, and I will underline legislations because it is important, and it is for any mode of transport which you will put on the road or on the road corridor, you must have the right legislations which actually it's different from country to country. Last but not least, we have to, I will strongly and advise that the budget has to be actually optimized, and we have to see what we need, and we have actually make sure that we put the right amount of money to get the best and to actually introduce the people the quality of life which they deserve.
Fantastic points shared. Honestly, some awesome insights. Thank you so much for each of our panelists. His Excellency Al Tayer, Her Excellency Anne-Marie, and Dr. Esposito. Can I get a big round of applause, please? That's all the time that we have. Honestly, some incredible panelists. And thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge and your insights and your contribution, especially your time, knowing that you're incredibly busy. Thank you all. We hope that this has been so insightful for you and given you a bit of a glimpse into sustainability and mobility projects in the future. Thank you again, and until next time, I'm Shireen Twali.